Hey everyone, Jordan Burke, friendly neighborhood club fitter. Inside to kind of beat the heat and the morning humidity today, but I want to talk a little bit on how to set up your golf bag. We all know about 14 clubs is the max you can have when you go out and play a round of golf in any tournaments or competitions, but you're actually allowed to have, not in your bag, but you can have more than that to kind of make up your set and decide what you do out there. So, example for my game, I am now playing a mini driver in lieu of a four wood, basically. Now, when I play these three golf courses over here, Marsh, Creekside, Bay Island, there's a lot of times where I'm having to hit my four wood off the tee box. And it's great distance wise because it helps me stay in play. But when you look at the size of the mini driver versus the size of the four wood, mini is a lot bigger. Now, I maybe hit this thing like 10 yards longer than the four wood, but size wise, it's going to be a lot more forgiving than the four wood. So, on all those holes where, let's say, I know like 5 on Bay Island is a perfect example for me. If I hit driver on that hole and I have it moving, if it takes off a little bit right of my intended target line, which is usually at that bunker in the middle, I can sometimes hit it through the fairway and I'm going to catch the cart path and I'm going to be in somebody's backyard that lives over there alongside number 5. And I don't want to do that. So if I hit forward off that tee, that's usually a great spot to put me in, and I'll have a middle to short iron into the green. But if I miss hit this thing, and depending on what the wind direction's blowing, because usually that hole is sometimes into the wind, I might need this for my second shot, depending on how bad I hit this. That's where mini driver comes in. It goes a little bit further, not much, but it's a bigger head, so it's gonna be more forgiving. So, look at this as I'm looking at this as this is like a course specific situation here where if I'm over on these 3 courses, I'll probably have mini in the bag, I'll probably hit mini a decent amount, and it's gonna work out pretty well for me. And then if let's say I go over to the Naples Club and I've got Sable and Cypress, much longer golf courses, more open golf courses where I can just, let loose on driver. Well, I can take mini out and put the forward back in. Now, the other beauty of this, or which I just found out as of late or as of this year, this shaft that I've got in my mini driver fits perfectly into the forward. And now mini driver is actually a little bit longer, so it's like a 43 and a half inches is what I've got this at. But if I take this shaft out and plug it into the forward, because of the size of the heads, my shaft of my mini, when I put it into the forward, ends up playing right at 43 inches. So it's perfect from a spec standpoint in terms of what I get out of it, in terms of being able to just have 2 heads and just plug and play one shaft back and forth with whatever I want. Let's look at the other end of the bag. Now, let's say that's one thing to do at the top end. Another thing that we could do, now I've got a very, very low bounce lob wedge. And this is kind of what I've been playing as of late and just discovered it kind of on a whim where I've been, couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do around the greens and just with some approach shots. And this really, really low bounce Vokey has turned out really, really well for me. And I also have another kind of mid bounce Vokey. So let's look at it this way. If I do get a chance to play in season and everything's firm, dry, crispy, and fast, well, this low bounce wedge is going to work great. Conversely, if I end up going to some place that seems really, really muddy, really, really wet, and heavy, thick, rough, I can opt for the mid bounce one and still get similar performance. So there's something you can look at, or take a point, Cypress with the chipping areas that we have around the greens. If you like to chip from them versus putt, which granted I do a little bit of both. If I have this in there, I might be catching them thin and kind of blading them across the green, and you give me something low bounce, I can kind of clip it a little bit easier. So that's the other thing that you can look at in terms of how you can adjust your wedge setup for the course conditions you're playing at. The other thing to take in mind or keep note of, let's look at, again, I'm using our golf courses as an example here. Let's look at the Cypress golf course. Now, if by some crazy reason I decide to go and play all the way back from the tips on that golf course, which is insanely long from all the way back, but look at the par 3s. I think number 5 is about 240. Number 2, is in that 230 to 245 range. Number 11, I want to say, is you can get it playing as much as over 200 yards, 215, 220 yards. And then 16 is like 235, 240. So we've got 220 to 250 in terms of courses, or in terms of yardages on those par threes. So let's say I'm looking at my golf bag, and 220 for me is a 4. And then after that, let's say I'm playing a hybrid, and the hybrids usually fly a little bit lower, higher than irons, but lower than fairway woods. If I want some height and I want some stopping power, I might want to consider taking that hybrid out and putting in like a 5 wood or 7 wood instead. So it's something I know I can get up and will stay and stop on the green. So that's how you can kind of, I might have a hybrid for when I'm playing one golf course, and I can plug and play something that I know that gets vertical really quickly and stops really easy for those longer par threes and those longer shots. So how to look at that in your case in mind, or for the average members, think of, again, Cypress, if you got some really long par threes and you're having to hit a 4 or 5 hybrid into some of those greens, or a 6 hybrid in those greens, and you feel the ball's coming a little bit too low, well, let's enter the discussion of a 9 wood. Let's look at a 9 wood. Let's look at an 11 wood, something that we know that can get it up, get it easier, stopping quicker, so you can kind of take on and cover some of those forced carries that you get on those holes. So understand your bag, those 14 clubs don't have to be the only 14 clubs you take to the golf course. Understand that you can have more than that on deck. Think of it as you are subbing in and out your players, doing my little NBA finals comparison here. So if you have from a wedge standpoint, change your wedges to kind of get what you're looking for. From a fairway wood standpoint, like for me, if I got a golf course that can't hit a lot of drivers, I'm going to throw the mini driver in. And then also from that middle perspective where you have hybrids and irons crossing over, give yourself something more forgiving so that you can hit some better shots on those par threes. So keep in mind, if there's any of this stuff interests you or anything you want to take a look at, feel free to reach out. Jordan B, BonitaBayClub.net. Thank you all. Have a great day.